Hello, welcome. I am Penny Abby Wardina, and I have the pleasure of serving all of you New Yorkers as Commissioner for International Affairs. Thank you for joining us this evening to commemorate the 59th anniversary, or the 59th Annual Commission on the Status of Women, and the 20th anniversary of the historic Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. New York City and Mayor de Blasio's administration are proud to be part of ushering in a new era of gender equality, where women's rights are human rights in New York City and the world. Now, before we begin, I want to share a few words about the Mayor's Office for International Affairs. As you may know, New York City is home to the largest diplomatic community in the world. And this office serves as a primary liaison between the city and the diplomatic community, foreign governments, the UN, and the State Department. And I've had the pleasure to discuss with many of you over the first 5 months of my tenure the new vision the mayor and I have for this office. In addition to our important protocol and operational work, I know a lot of you guys are looking at me and seeing parking spots, but there is definitely more to this office than that. We are most importantly working to create a global platform from which we can promote the city's goals for a more just and accessible society, showcase the diversity of New Yorkers, and learn from as well as share best practices with you, our global community. It is quite fitting that we are meeting amidst the Beijing +20 events, since New York City, under Mayor de Blasio, is putting women at the center of our efforts for equality, to reduce inequality. I want to acknowledge who we at City Hall fondly call the Girl Gang, under the leadership of our feminist mayor and our feminist first lady. Maya Wiley, the mayor's general counsel, Rose Pierre-Louis, the commissioner for the Office to Combat Domestic Violence, Roxanne John, the Chief of Staff to the First Lady, and Gabrielle Fialkoff, the Mayor's Senior Advisor. Not only are we leading the fight to make New York a more equitable society, we are also part of a larger and more exceptional women gang, the women who make up 53% of this city government's leadership. It is fair to point out that women run this city. Before I introduce a very talented artist, I want to thank the mayor and the First Lady for kindly opening their home up to us tonight. This is the first diplomatic event hosted by the mayor here at Gracie Mansion, and it signifies the value New York City places in acting as home and host to the United Nations. I'm pleased to share the Mayor's Office for International Affairs has also recently launched the New Yorkness of the UN initiative to celebrate the UN's 70th anniversary. That said, thank you to all of our UN and UN women partners, the permanent representatives to the UN, consuls general, and the civil society leaders and activists here this evening. We are excited to celebrate with you, so thank you for coming home to us. Now it is my honor. Thank you. Now it is my honor to introduce Miri Ben-Ari, a globally renowned violinist and UN Goodwill Ambassador to music. She is a Grammy winner and fittingly the winner of the UN Foundation's first ever Girl Up Youth Award, honoring young women who stand up, who speak up, and support the empowerment of adolescent girls around the world. Please join me in welcoming Miri Ben-Ari.
How's everybody doing this evening? No, we can do way better than that. How's everybody doing this evening? So I wanted to thank Mayor de Blasio and the First Lady of New York and UN Women for hosting this wonderful and important event. We are here tonight to be reminded again of the importance of empowerment, empowering women, and gender equality. You know, I personally cannot imagine living in a world that deprives women of their rights. And with that being said, I grew up in the Middle East, where many, many women are deprived of their rights. And a society that deprives women of their rights is an unbalanced society. So Beijing 20 platform opened a lot of opportunities, and we still have a very long way to go. And it's totally our duty, the global community, to take action and to make sure that we can create concrete changes. I like to create changes with my music. And so I would like to play for you right now one more original composition that I dedicated to social justice, social development, social integration. I was humbled to play it around the world and also at the White House. It's dedicated to one of my very heroes, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and it's called A Symphony of Brotherhood.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Thank you for that amazing performance. It is now my privilege to welcome to stage our host, feminist mayor Bill de Blasio, his wife, the First Lady of New York City, Chirlane McCray, and our partners, Deputy Secretary General Jan Eliasson and UN Women Executive Director Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. Woo!
All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Gracie Mansion. This is the People's House. The people of New York City, thank you for being here, and we welcome you. I want to thank our wonderful Commissioner for International Affairs, Penny Abiwardena, who is extremely enthusiastic to work with all of you and to spread the message of everything we're doing here in New York City, but also to find out how New York City can be a great host to you and all the great work you're doing. Let's thank Penny for all she does. And suffice it to say, in the work of our International Affairs Office, Penny will ensure a singular focus on the rights and needs of women at all times. I guarantee that. We should all thank for an extraordinary performance, Miri Ben Ari. It was a beautiful performance and heartfelt. There is something about an artist who believes in something and uses their art to uplift us all that is particularly appreciated. So we thank Miri for her beautiful performance. From my administration, so many of our colleagues are here and excited to be here for the opportunity to work with all of you. I'd just like to name them and thank them. The chair of our Human Rights Commission for the City of New York, Carmelyn Malalas. Our Commissioner for the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, Nisha Argawal. And my counsel, and you always listen to your lawyer, my counsel, Maya Wiley. Let's thank her. The great, great guests that we have here, we appreciate everyone's presence. We're particularly honored by the presence of a woman who does great things and whose name may seem daunting to the average American, and daunting to me as well, but I'm going to do my best to say Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. How we do, okay? Okay. The Executive Director for UN Women and her deputy, Lakshmi Puri. Thank you both for being here and for your great, great work. All of the excellencies, all of the Consul Generals who are here, we thank you. There's a tremendous sense of solidarity and progress in this room. We thank you all for being a part of it. And now I would like to invite forward a man who has been a great leader on a progressive vision of the world, and particularly on the needs of women, Deputy Secretary General Jan Eliasson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Mayor, and Ms. Mayor, First Lady, Excellencies, Phumzile. That's the easiest way to deal with that last name. And all of you, it's sold out tonight, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm not surprised. I promise you I will leave the speech aside, the prepared speech. I just want to say, first of all, to you, Ms. Mayor, and to the First Lady, how much we in the United Nations appreciate that you have so clearly shown the common values between the City of New York and the United Nations. I don't think in the history of the United Nations, as I can recall it, we have had ever such a close relationship and such commonality of values that we have now. So I would like to say that New York is part of the world, but I also claim that the world is part of New York.
Amen.
And I would go as far as to say that New York is part of the United Nations, but the United Nations is also part of New York. So here we are. I'll make it easy for myself. I will read to you a little bit of diplomatic poetry.
Nice.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. There is one clause in the Universal Declaration which is the same as the UN Charter. The reason I show you this UN Charter is that it was given to me by a lady in Sweden, my home country. She thought that I deserved to have this. She had bought it in New York 1950, and she was so in awe and admiration of the woman who was leading the seminar in 1950. So she went up and she bought this copy, 25 cents, huge investment. And then she went up to the lady and she asked, "Could I have your autograph, please?" So here in my Universal Declaration, she says, "With good wishes, Eleanor Roosevelt." I have this in my safe. But here's the text, and here's the diplomatic poetry. Whereas the peoples of the United Nations have, in the Charter, reaffirmed their faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, and in the equal rights of men and women, and have determined to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. The General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I will go into Article 1 because it's irresistible. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. This is it. This is what we are fighting for. And the first three words of the Charter, which I have in my back pocket, but I won't show you, is "we the peoples." If we ever forget that we are here to serve the peoples, to give them peace, development, human rights, a life in dignity, we have lost ourselves. We have not understood what this is all about. And we have work to do. I think if I look for good news in the world, it's women and knowledge. But we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. You know, you go around the world, I see Tony Lake and others in the room. You go and see the girls, and you see the women in the world, and you see the violence, and you see the deprivation, every horrible thing. We have to keep working. We can never give up. But when I feel the energy in this room, and when I feel the energy about women and the cause for which you stand, I am hopeful, and we can make it. My last observation will be a recollection from my young day as a diplomat when I was serving with my Prime Minister, Olof Palme of Sweden. And the speechwriter came into his room with a speech. And it was a really banal heading of the speech in the draft. It says, "The importance of the emancipation of women." So he said, "Listen, boys," and we were all men, unfortunately, in the room at that time. He said, you haven't understand what this is all about. Emancipation of women. No, this is emancipation of man. So this is what it's all about. That we realize that this is the road we have to travel together. That's when we become strong and we all gain from it. And in that spirit, we should go ahead. And Mr. Mayor, First Lady, Executive Director, Penny, all of you, thank you for doing this. And thank you for bringing the United Nations to Gracie Mansion and New York to UN, and the same way as UN to New York. Thank you very much.
Very well. I think we should give Jan credit for his dramatic flourish, because I'm sure, like me, you were thinking, what's so special about this book that he keeps talking about? And then he brings out the Eleanor Roosevelt signature, and very clever, very clever. I commend you. You have earned your position of leadership. Speaking of leadership, one more member of my administration we're so proud to have with us. She is a former brigadier general in the United States Army and now the commissioner for our mayor's office for Veteran Affairs, Lori Sutton. Welcome. So, as Jan said, we believe in this administration that the United Nations is a blessing to this world and a blessing to New York City. And we are proud to host the United Nations. We think it is our obligation, our pleasure, to work closely with the United Nations in common cause, because we think the values that Jan just enunciated are the epitome, of course, of the United Nations, but they also speak to everything we believe in as New Yorkers and everything this administration pursues. So we intend to deepen our engagement, our connection to the United Nations, and we're looking for every way to have a positive impact. In September, so many of us had the great honor of being a part of the climate summit. I had the honor of marching down 6th Avenue with the Secretary General in his T-shirt, which I consider an important moment in world history. I believe it may have been one of the first times a Secretary General wore a T-shirt in public. But it was such an extraordinary moment, and a moment you could feel the world turn because it spoke all over the world. We saw the outpouring of concern for real action on climate change. I had the honor of speaking at the summit. It's an example of where New York City will do all we can, not just to join the demonstrations and the gatherings, but to act as a city. On that day, we declared that New York City had committed itself to the 80% reduction of carbon emissions by 2050 goal, the 80 by 50 goal that is so important for all nations, all cities, all regions to pursue, and we committed to it visibly then to try and help along the work of the Secretary in General, and others will keep doing that. We've worked with so many of you on something we're so excited about, our municipal identification card, ID NYC, available to all who live here regardless of documentation status. And as I've gone around the world even talking about ID NYC, what's powerful, what's universal is the way that people of goodwill and people who believe in embracing all of humanity see in this effort an example of where we hopefully will go, where governments will embrace all people and look at immigration and migration as part of the human reality and not deny it, but embrace all people and support all people. We're trying to do that in our way here. And we are honored, of course, to host the Beijing 20+20 celebration. And we understand what a moment this is because of the event that it takes its name from, and it honors and it exemplifies. And we all, I think, people feel that great sense of Beijing was a momentous, special, transcendent moment, and yet it is impossible to feel satisfied with what's happened in the last 20 years. It's very possible to feel inspired by what was reached in Beijing and what was begun in Beijing, but tremendous amount of work to be done. We in New York City will do all we can to be standard bearers in the fight against inequality of all kinds and the fight for gender equality. And we see that as taking so many forms, and I don't think anyone in this room would disagree with the statement that if you are serious about fighting gender inequality, then these issues must be addressed in economic terms, in real and tangible terms. And so in terms of things like job creation, affordable housing, education, this is where you find out whether you're a society that actually is focused on building equality. We here in New York City have tried to greatly expand universal pre-K so that all of our children, starting next year, every child at pre-kindergarten age will be guaranteed full-day pre-K. That is a transcendent action. Dare I say that the majority of those children will be girls, and it will start their lives and their educational careers and their careers beyond the right way. That the families that benefit, in some cases saving $10,000 or more because it's a free service to educate their girls, the families that benefit are so often led by women, and many women of limited means for whom it's a transcendent moment. This is the kind of thing government can do to actually intangibly uplift. We've expanded paid sick leave so that all people, including an estimated 243,000 women in this city, will not lose pay simply because they're sick. And they'll have economic continuity and stability and that is especially powerful for lower-income women. And we know what a plague domestic violence is. We know it overwhelmingly afflicts women. And we know that any government that's not fighting it overtly every day, unfortunately, is accepting the status quo. And so we endeavor to lead. We provide not just the education and the enlightenment in every way we can to change behavior and change culture, but we've opened a variety of new centers to serve women who are survivors of domestic violence, and we've created a human trafficking intervention program. All of these are the kinds of things governments should do if they're serious about equality. And dare I say healthcare, where we're expanding access to healthcare, creating more neighborhood clinics, and ensuring safe access to reproductive health care. This is essential, but it's a beginning. It's a beginning, and we're just getting started, and we know that we have to do all we can to uplift our mothers and our wives and our sisters and our daughters every day. And although the Secretary General could not be with us, his spirit is here in the room, his benevolent spirit, and I want to offer you some words that he offered in 2011. He said, "Women hold up more than half the sky and represent so much of the world's unrealized potential. We need their full engagement in government, business, and civil society. As the Secretary General has made clear, we have only just begun. That potential must be realized, and it's all of our business to ensure that it is." Now, before I move on, I must say, in New York City, we take very seriously our commitment to do all things in a multicultural fashion, in a way that acknowledges and appreciates all cultures. In this city, that has a simple and immediate meaning. If you're just speaking in English, you're leaving out about 2.4 million people, for many of whom their first language is Spanish. And we have 2.4 million Latinos in this city, of which we are deeply proud. So with that, I say, Nueva York se une a la comunidad internacional en la lucha por la igualdad de las mujeres en todo el mundo. Seguimos en la lucha contra la desigualdad en Nueva York y queremos ser líderes globales en mejorar las vidas de nuestras madres, esposas, hijas y hermanas. You can really say it in any language. But I can also say it in personal terms. It was my mother and my aunts and my grandmother who were the role models for me, who taught me right from wrong and taught me the kind of society we should have. And I try and live out their values every single day. And I think for so many people in this room, that is true. I would say in the family that lives here in this house, I have one hero who is my daughter, Kiara, who is one of the most courageous people I have ever met, who has stared down the challenges and demons that she's faced as a young woman and become a leader, helping other young people to overcome mental illness and to overcome substance abuse. And that alone would make me ever more devoted to the cause of women's equality. But I have a second reason, and she is standing on this stage. And she is not only the love of my life, she is the partner in everything I do. She is the conscience of not only the work I do, but of our entire administration. If you want an example, when presented with the notion that the senior leadership of our administration should be 51% women, Charlene McRae looked sternly at me and said it needs to be at least 52%. So I'm proud to say we are now at 52%, indicating the power of persuasion and leadership. And I try every day to live up to the simple notion that if I am worthy of her, if I live out these values, then I qualify to be a he for she. With that, I present to you the First Lady of New York City, Charlene McRae.
What a beautiful crowd. Really, you all look so gorgeous. And I still have chills from the music. Isn't art, isn't music the universal language, right? Please give her another round of applause. And I want to give a special thank you to Bill. Your introductions get better and better. Right? Aren't I lucky? Take it from me, people. Our mayor is truly a he for she. That's important. That's important. Because if he was not a he for she, he would not be the he for me. Like
Turn
that?
of the phrase.
Seriously now.
She worked on that all week.
It's good. Seriously, from day one, we have been partners in work, we are partners in marriage, and most importantly, we are partners in parenthood. And speaking of parenthood, this wonderful celebration has had me thinking back to where I was 2 decades ago when the Fourth World Conference was being held in Beijing. I followed the proceedings as closely as I could, but I confess to being a little distracted. Our daughter Kiara was 9 months old at the time. And so after work, most of my waking hours, and many of my sleeping hours too, were devoted to her. One of my most cherished possessions in those days was a rocking chair that Bill's mom gave us. So when Kiara was awake, I would read her stories in that chair. And when she was asleep, we would just rock back and forth while I imagined her future. I wanted her to have the same things every parent wants for their child: good health, a well-rounded education, freedom from fear and violence, and a fair shot at achieving her goals. While Kiara and I were rocking in that chair, the delegates in Beijing were laying out a platform for action to help billions of other women and girls around the globe realize their dreams. In the 2 decades since then, women and men from around the world, including all of you, have been working with passion and diligence to turn that platform into reality. So we have come a long, long way. There is certainly cause for celebration, but everyone here knows that we still have a long, long way to go. And that is cause for action. As Bill stated, this administration is committed to unstacking the odds that have held women back for far too long. And I am committed to doing my part. Back in November, I had the honor of speaking at the United Nations and signing the document that made New York the first city in the United States to join the Safe Cities Global Initiative. We are now taking steps to make all of our public spaces free from sexual harassment and other forms of sexual violence. We are leading the charge to recruit other U.S. cities to the Safe Cities Initiative, because we have reached 68 cities so far, and we have shared with them our Memorandum of Understanding. Our participation in Safe Cities speaks to 2 important truths. Number 1, the partnership between the United Nations and New York City is stronger than ever. And number 2, the city's International Affairs Office is doing tremendous work that is benefiting all New Yorkers. As Bill mentioned, the city has also launched an array of bold initiatives that are already making a big difference in the lives of female New Yorkers. And I have to say, I am particularly interested in the work that we're doing to protect the victims of domestic violence, which brings me back to Kiara. Last summer, Kiara was an intern at the Office to Combat Domestic Violence. Her major is sociology, with an emphasis on women's studies and gender equality. Not only is she a member of the Feminists for Justice organization, she is a loud and proud feminist. And so is our son, our 17-year-old son, Dante. That's right. Bill and I raised 2 young feminists. And so many of the dreams I had for Kiara and Dante have come true. But the fact remains, too many of our daughters still face tougher odds than our sons, and that has to change. I look forward to working with all of you to create a better, brighter future for our mothers, for our sisters, for our daughters, for ourselves and our families. And it is now my pleasure to introduce someone who needs no introduction, but I'm going to praise her anyway. I first met Madame Phumzile right here in Gracie Mansion. She has such serenity and grace. I immediately connected with her. Meeting her in person and experiencing the strength of her passion and the depths of her commitment to gender equity, it got me all fired up. I left that meeting so excited and ready to work with her and the UN Women, and that excitement has only grown. We're just getting started. So, Madame Phumzile, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Shalane, for that wonderful introduction. Maya, thank you so much for your kind words. Deputy SG, Penny, thank you so much. I prayed for Penny to come and work for you.
Really? Well, it worked.
It worked. So
You're very influential.
I have a connection somewhere. I'd also like to recognize my colleagues who are here tonight. I saw some of them in the crowd. I saw Tony Lake, who does excellent work with children, head of UNICEF. He slipped away. Irina Pokova, UNESCO. They slipped away behind my back. Adama, who works on making us as nations of the world never again to go to that place called genocide. That's his job. Okay, so here's my other sister, Mbaranga. She looks after lots of difficult security issues in the United Nations. The woman takes care of security. This is because the Secretary General Ban has been responsible for appointing the largest number of women into senior position in the whole life of the United Nations. That is. And tomorrow evening, we're gonna recognize him for that, but ask for more. So I'd like to also add my word of appreciation to Miri Ben Ari for her wonderful musical performance. And of course, it's always a pleasure to be with you, to caucus with you. And since we signed our Memorandum of Understanding, we've really just been going between the city and UN Women. There are many firsts in this relationship. I have been told that UN Women is the first UN agency to sign a Memorandum of Understanding with the city. I think we're the first one to be hosted in this manner. I think the Safe City and what we're gonna do with the Safe City and the many cities that you are already looking at, calling into the fold of Safe Cities would also mean that we will be working with many mayors around the US, talking to them about making all the cities of the US safe for girls and connecting them with other safe cities around the world that we work with. We work with Kigali, we work with the city of Cape Town, we work with Cairo, and this is going to be a nice international arrangement where New York, which is where we live as UN Women, will also be connecting. I'm sure some of them will be your sister cities as well, yes. So that should also be very interesting. So we are here because we are at the beginning of the Commission of the Status of Women. We're celebrating 20 years after Beijing, and we are saying that it is significant that 20 years, no city has achieved no country has achieved gender equality. Yesterday, when we went out to march, we had many people. I think the New York Times can't count because they gave the wrong number.
I agree.
I
I
agree.
see that a lot.
We had so many, and some of you are here today, from 41st Street to 49. When we all got together to stand to end the march, this is how long the line and the chunk of the people that were there was. And that was a march that we were hosting together with the city. Thank you so much for the support that we got from your security forces. And thank you so much for the wonderful speeches that were made there yesterday. Another first with the city, last year together we kicked the beginning of the 16 days of no violence against women, and our theme and the color of the campaign is orange. So we were asking the city to orange the hood. And we asked the whole world to do that, and I can see a few people with orange here, keep it up. On that occasion, you lit the Empire State orange. I mean, how cool was that? The UN was orange, the Giza pyramids were orange, the Panama Canal was orange, the Table Mountain in Cape Town was orange. So, what can I say? So we know that as we do this, we are forcing people in our communities, in our neighborhoods, to discuss this issue of violence against women, to take a stand. And of course, our plan is to follow this with some of the programs that they do, and we can exchange them with our countries that we work with and programs that we have in different parts of the world. But also, we hope that the work that we do in other countries, the city will also be able to see what we do when we're not here at home, what we do in other countries. We are going to have another fest and a wonderful occasion tomorrow, again, together with the city, celebrating the 20 years of the anniversary of this iconic declaration and platform of action adopted in Beijing. This will be at the Manhattan Center tomorrow evening, and I'm sure some of you will be there. There, we will recognize those veterans who are in Beijing, but also we'll be bringing in the younger people and saying, this is your struggle. You need to embrace it, and then you need to run even faster than us. When I said to Mrs. Michelle that at that occasion we would like people who are our leaders to hand over the torch to the younger people, says, no, we will hold the torch together because we can't sit down and let the kids fight alone. I thought that was very nice. But never the same, we're bringing in young people. And of course, we would also like to appreciate many of you, especially my sister agencies of the UN, for the exceptional work that they do, most of the time thankless, and for the solidarity and the collaboration that we have with them. We are looking forward also to working with you for the next 15 years, to 2030. 2030 is the expiry date for gender inequality. Boom! Yesterday, the march was the launch of that campaign. We were taking ourselves as UN Women, as the UN, as the broader community to the streets of New York, symbolizing the streets of the world and saying to the people, men and boys, old and young, who are in this thing together, we don't have to wait for 2030, of course. We don't want people to start getting hectic in 2028. We want to start now. In 2020, we want to begin to show results of the things that we're doing in implementing the SDGs in such a way that we are turning the curve of violence against women, of unpaid care work, of disempowerment of women, and the many programs that some of you are doing. We're going to do this together, and we need a lot of people because we believe that fighting for gender equality is a people's job. UN Women is just a representative, but this is the job we want to do with everybody else. We thank you very much for this collaboration, and I also want to thank my colleagues from UN Women, Mrs. Puri here, who's my deputy, and many senior managers from UN Women who are here, who are wonderful people. Thank you.
Isn't she fantastic? Yeah, right? Gender equity by 2030. Can we do it? Yeah, right? Thank you, everyone. Please have a wonderful evening.